for 10 years and in the IT space for since 2009, roughly. So a lot of blue team stuff prior to pen testing. Mobile was just one of those where it was, hey, we need more people testing mobile stuff. Who wants to do it? And I raised my hand, and now I regret it. Just kidding, but
Oh, come on, you need to
um,
be happy about it. It's fun.
I,
When
I
you're
am actually happy about it.
into
I
your
mean,
phone.
if you look at my calendar this year, I've done nothing but mobiles this year, except for like one or two applications. So, I mean,
Yeah,
if I hated it, I'm in for a rough haul this year. But
where you
no,
come back
I
from
do actually.
vacation and your
I,
phone's
I,
rebooted because it got upgraded and you lose all your root.
you know, I don't ever have that problem because all of my stuff is connected to constant power. But I hear that is a problem for some people on the team. Uh, But no, I mean, I've been doing mobile testing here for 2 years now, roughly. And I will say my first introduction to mobile was an absolute horrendous experience where um, I had no idea what I was doing. And a client had come to us, and this was probably 10 years ago now. They said, "Look, we built a mobile app. We want you to test it." I was like, "Okay, I have no idea what I'm doing on mobile, but I can try to figure it out." And the best that we were able to do was get a burp certificate installed on the device, capture a little bit of API traffic, but we weren't able to root the device. We couldn't bypass SSL pinning or anything like that on it. So once we hit those walls, we were just toast. So the stuff that we're doing now is so much more advanced than anything that I was trying to do 10 years ago on mobile stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at state of the art today. So, Kelsey, everybody probably knows you from all the stuff you do on Discord, but I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, they should all know me by now, but yeah, I mean, similar to Kurt, I started out doing, application stuff and had an opportunity to just uh get into mobile here at Trusted Tech. Did a couple of interesting trainings and have been testing mobile for about 3 years now, I think, probably. Yeah, I mean, steep learning curve, but it's a different animal than the gray box stuff, but super interesting and gives you a different insight into applications, and it's the way forward. So yeah, it's been a
Nope, did we cut out there?
against recently in your tests. Kurt, sounds like you're back to back with the mobile, so maybe you have something interesting you've seen recently.
I mean, the most interesting thing would probably be the report where I ended up actually rating a mobile application as like critical severity.
Really?
Which doesn't happen often. Um, it was kind of funny. So to give a little bit of backstory for this, it was a client that came to us for a mobile and a web app test. And during the web app test, they had basically no authorization checks whatsoever. So if you were a read-only user, you could do all of the same stuff that a super admin could do or a domain admin could do in the web app. Um, when I got into the mobile, I was like, okay, well, let's see what's going on in the mobile. And the idea was, um, it, you have like internet connected power supplies, so you could control like the fan speed on your power supply. You could check voltages. You could update the firmware on your power supplies, things like that. Um, they separated out their APIs from web and mobile. So there was a specific API call that was used in the mobile app for changing your passwords. Um, all you needed to know was an email address and a password. Um, so from their mobile API, I could change any user's password just by knowing their email address. You log in with that account. You could then actually take the JWT that was assigned to the mobile phone and pass it to the web app. And now you're complete admin on everything. Um, I sat down and actually had a talk with the client, and I was like, "Look, I don't know how bad this can get. I don't actually have a power supply that I could test this on." And so we walked through all of the functionality that we had access to, and what it turned out was I had access to basically brick anyone's power supply that they do business with. I had the ability to basically turn off the fans on all of their power supplies, so overheat them and destroy the power supplies. Um, it got pretty ugly pretty quickly when we were having that call, to like actual real world damaging equipment out there. So I will say that is an extremely rare scenario that we find stuff like that. But nonetheless, like it was kind of cool to be able to go through it and actually like feel like a hacker from a movie from what we could describe it with what was done there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember the last time I even had a high on a mobile assessment. You know, most of the time we're dealing with lows and medium reports just because of the, you know, the nature of the animal. So that's really interesting. That's a good one. We did have a question about, do most mobile app testers come from the mobile app dev background? Speaking for myself, no. I have a dev background, but not mobile specifically. I think most application testers tend to come from some sort of development background in some way. But I don't think any of us have a lot of mobile development experience, guys.
No.
Uh, I mean, I'll just say I basically have no dev background whatsoever. Like, I took some development classes when I was in college. Uh, Anytime anybody goes, "Oh, you can write code," I go, "I can like
Read it.
maybe piece something together."
Yeah.
Yeah, can
I
read
can
it. Yeah,
script.
absolutely.
I can script.
I struggle, man. I rely a lot on like Chat GPT and or Google for a lot of my scripting. Because I'm like, God, I sometimes I forget even what print statements are. I mean, if I'm being completely honest.
Echoing, that's when you
But
just repeat the same
I'm
word a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, everybody's experience is that print statements are for debugging, right? I mean, but so I have a hard time saying that I'm from a dev background at all. I mean, I can code, but a lot of my experience just actually comes from most of the functionality in a mobile app is APIs, and then where is the data being stored on the device type of thing, and is it being stored securely? Um, so that's where I've kind of found app testing to be fairly easy. Is if you know how to test an API, you know how to test a mobile app.
And I guess from my perspective, I went from basically blue teaming to learning how to test mobile apps. So I don't even think I tested a web application before I started doing mobile. So a lot of it back in like 2018 was kind of trial by fire, and we had like an idea, and we used probably the OWASP mobile PDF a lot. Back then it was a PDF. But if you go into Google stuff, there wasn't a lot of info out there, so we were breaking through on different things. Like I did a lot of reverse engineering. One of the drone apps that I did, I took like no fly zone off of there. So it was just a lot of Google and see if somebody puts something out there and hope that it works. But it's definitely gotten so much better information wise. People are actually putting blog posts. We have blog posts out there. I've done a couple talks, but back to like the coding thing, it's not like the biggest part of um your testing. Like, can you grep out for secrets in the reverse engineer code? That's about it, I feel like. And Frida snippets. Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, maybe it would be helpful to go through a couple of our most commonly used tools. Yeah, Frida's a big one. I know you were just mentioning reverse engineering. So, you know, Ghidra's another tool that we use, especially if we're trying to subvert jailbreak detection or something like that. Um, any others you guys want to call out that other than objection? That's a hooked up with Frida, and we'll use that to get insight into an application.
JADX being huge for Android side of things and reverse engineering there.
We have the nested P lists in the database. That's keeps a lot of data in there that you might not be aware of. So the P lists, I think it's Substractor that helps out quite a bit in finding data that should be like stored in the key store properly.
We did have a
Nice.
question. Most commonly encountered above medium findings on a mobile for Android or for iOS. I would say we don't encounter that many above a medium. Most of our findings are mediums and lows.
And I think if the high, sometimes it almost comes from the web portion of it. So like I had integer overflow, like that, even though the web app uses, or even though the mobile app uses the web app, it's more a web app specific finding or web application specific finding versus actual mobile severity.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say if there is a high finding, it's going to be on the API. It's, much less likely that there's going to be a significant issue on the device. Mobile devices are already protected in a number of ways, so anything we find on how the application is storing data or something on the device, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to rate it a high because there's so many, extra obstacles to be able to access it, and we are testing on jailbroken phones or rooted phones. We're asking for builds that have jailbreak detection disabled or have certificate pinning disabled. So we're already opening things up a little bit there, more than in the wild you'd encounter. So anything that comes up as a higher medium is going to be an API finding that you'd see on a web app.
I don't know. Have you seen credentials like stored in the cache DB, like login credentials? I don't know if that would be something we would.
I definitely have, but I think I rated it a medium just because you still there's so many obstacles. Not that you want to rely on security through just through obfuscation or whatever, but just because it's so hard to get that cache DB as it is, you have to have access to the device, that you have to have a jailbroken device, you have to be able to decrypt it. So I think I've still rated a medium in the past.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably the most common medium that we have is the insecure credential storage, whether it's iOS or Android, just because you can put it in XML file, JSON file, you can put it in cache DB. There's a million different places. And just expanding on what Kelsey you were saying, on the mobile side, like if I as an attacker want to exploit that, one of the big things is that apps are typically sandboxed for where they're allowed to access data, right, within their own directories. So you do have to have a rooted device. You've got to have a malicious app that's installed that's running with those root permissions in order to get across that sandbox to get to that data. And so that's where the mobile specific stuff doesn't tend to go beyond a medium because of all of those obstacles like you were saying there.
We also had a question: what tools do you use for API testing? Same you'd use on a web application. So Burp Suite Pro is our number one tool for intercepting traffic. On a mobile device, it's a little bit harder to get everything, set up. You obviously have to have a jailbroken device, and you have to install the burp certificate on the device. There can be some funky issues with getting everything proxied and getting the device to work with Burp Suite. Sometimes that can be a bit of a time suck, trying to get everything working there. But once you're up and rolling, it's very similar to a web application assessment from that perspective. Inspecting the request via Burp Suite and using the same extensions you'd use there. Whitney, I know you've done a couple of talks on mobile application testing at conferences, and that sort of thing. Any common questions you hear from people there that maybe you'd want to go over?
Common questions that I've had. No, because they're super one-off questions. I know people do enjoy the talk quite well. Some of them it's like either completely over their head or they're doing mobile and it's stuff that they already know, but um I kind of know it like the back of my hand, but we go through jailbreaking, like different types of applications for jailbreaking. Um then static analysis. So I know it's hard because I don't remember when's the last time I did a mobile talk. Last uh February, no, like 2 Februarys ago. So and sometimes they're like super obscure, but um a lot of times I just go through the different steps that I take in my mobile testing. And then people have like little one-off questions, and if I can't answer it, I'm gonna Google it and send them an answer later on. But um if it's helpful, I can go over some of the stuff that I normally do. So if anybody's interested, we normally start with jailbroken or a rooted device. Um Typically I use Magisk for my root, and then we've been using Pale Rain for iOS, and then Uncover was a good one for a while, and then I forget what there's like a latest one out, but those are all good for your rooting in jailbroken.
Yeah, I'm still mostly using Pale Rain. I think the newest versions um of iOS it's not quite working on. I think it only works up to like 18.2 or something
Mm,
like that. I don't think it's quite rolled out. So I have a couple
mm,
devices that aren't jailbreakable right now because I did have to update them. So that is unfortunate. One of the things we have to do with mobile testing is we have to have a lot of devices on a lot of different iOS versions, so that we can test to get access to whatever app we need. Um, Jesse, you were asking about API testing tools. Most of the time with a mobile assessment, we're exploring the API through the front end mobile application. So we're figuring out the API structure based on the mobile application rather than being, provided a raw form API through a Postman collection or something like that to look at. So we initially will start off an assessment going through accessing all the functionality and triggering all the requests we can so that we can get an idea of what's available. So, but if once in a while, they will provide us a Postman collection alongside, that's probably the most common thing we see. Swagger docs, something like that. But our main technique is to explore it with the mobile application itself and use Burp Suite to map the application.
If you were looking for API, just if you were just generally asking about API, I think I've used Postman, and then what was the other app that we started using for
Insomnia.
insomnia?
Yeah,
Postman's kind of not been good lately. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
they had
and
an
the big
update.
I was just gonna say the big problem with Postman is that they've pushed so heavily towards pushing everything to the cloud, and as consultants, we aren't pushing client data out to the cloud ever. I mean, we just don't ever want to deal with a client being happy with that or unhappy with it, whatever it may be there. So Insomnia, the nice part is you can set up the project locally and still submit all of the requests. It acts like Postman used to. I forget the term that they call it. It's like your dashboard or something like that.
yeah.
But you can set up all of the requests, all of the parameters. It acts just like Postman does. You could do cloud stuff with it, but it isn't heavily pushed in Insomnia, which is nice. But um, like Kelsey, you were saying, uh, I don't know the last time that I've ever been provided an actual Postman. It's walk through the mobile app, look at the API traffic, and dynamically inspect it. Sometimes through like Dirbuster stuff like that, I'll find your Swagger docs, and I'll peruse it. And that test where I ended up finding a critical there, that was where I ended up finding all of their API endpoints and finding out that a bunch of their stuff was unauthenticated. Um, but usually we're not handed that. We end up finding it dynamically on the mobile side of things.
We did have a question. Do you report findings which are more relevant in older Android versions, e.g., tap jacking?
I'm going to be completely honest. It's probably been 10 years since I've heard tap jacking. I can't say that I even remember the core issues with it, but usually not unless it were to pop in like Mob SF telling us that tap jacking is a thing.
That's
I honestly
something
don't
we
look for that
heard.
vulnerability
I
anymore.
think Janus is the only one that we run into nowadays that it's for older mobile apps.
Yeah. And for iOS, usually things are a bit locked down and older versions are prevented from even having the application. So, um, yeah, not so much. And even if we're testing on an older device, a lot of times, in production, that application wouldn't even be available on that device version or something like that. So, we're trying to mimic, a real world environment as much as we can. So we're not
So,
necessarily looking at really old techniques on really old phones or things like that.
Yeah.
so another thing. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Whit. Nope, go ahead.
Well, we had briefly talked about. I want to circle back around to Mob SF because if people don't know about it, it's definitely something I think we should talk about just because it's like a
That was where I
starting.
was going to go.
Oh, did we just mind meld? I love
Yeah,
that.
that's exactly what happened.
I like that. I like that for you. Do you want to talk about it, Kurt?
No. Go for it. You started. Go for it.
No. All right. So, one of the parts of my mobile talk, I do go briefly over Mob SF. I can put that in the chat. So this is our static. This is not our static, but it's a static analysis tool that we use as testers, and it is like my first go-to. So once I receive that APK or the IPA file, I'm putting that into MobSF. It's going to look through the application, and it basically gives you hey, there might be hard-coded secrets here. Hey, ATS is enabled, so clear traffic is allowed. It basically it's nice because you can go through that and then you can see where you want to start as a tester because you can have your list of testing that you need to do, but we all know in the testing world we're squirreling off into different rabbit holes every day. But I use that kind of as a guidance in my testing, and I did in my previous job as well. I don't know if anybody has any more to add to it. What
Yeah,
cool things? Oh yeah, the
I,
Firebase URLs and stuff you can find easily through there, so you don't have to run another tool.
I was going to say it's great for static analysis, but one of the biggest things that Mob SF leaned into is trying to identify if a mobile app is malicious or not. So when you look at the security rating, I don't know that I've ever seen a client's app that has a rating over like 50 out of 100. And it's because it has things like are you using canary stack tokens on this particular framework? Like if you're not, you're dinged on your security, and the reality of it is 99 out of 100 apps are never actually going to use that because the frameworks that are out there, you're just mostly drag and dropping to build your apps these days. But it's great for it'll look at the build configuration. It'll look at Whitney, like you had said, the Firebase URL stuff where you had found a couple of cool things there just the other day. It looks at a lot of that static stuff. So it gives you a starting point to, okay, I need to tear apart the APK and I need to find that build config, or I need to go find the network security config in there and just see if plain text traffic is enabled or anything like that.
Yeah, and then earlier too, it also has I'm dealing with an app right now that has certificate pinning on it, and I can't bypass it with the normal objection route that I use. And I've tried 2 different Frida scripts, but MobSF also reported, here are the libraries that we find the cert pinning in, and they'll mark it as secure because obviously that's a good thing to have. But and then it'll also say this app might have root detection, so it kind of gives you an idea of where to look if you have to reverse engineer the app to try to bypass that certificate pinning.
Yeah. Whitney or Kurt, would you be able to go through a little bit about what Frida is and maybe some of your experience working with it? I'm sure it's a tool that not a ton of people have heard of, so might be good to chat about it a little bit.
Much sadness.
Did,
Tell us how you really feel.
Whitney, do you want to explain it?
No. It's a love-hate
Okay.
relationship. It's a toxic relationship for me.
We'll get into that in a minute. So just I'll quickly
Really
explain it.
people, it's
Maybe we squirrel off
frustrating.
on the problems there. So Frida is dynamic instrumentation. So the idea is that you have not only a client and a server, but the idea is that I've got the Frida client on, say, my laptop, and I have the server on the cell phone. And the server allows me to kind of dynamically look at stuff that's running on the device. So think of it almost like a Win debug. So I can not only see the processes, but I can also see some of the class calls, method calls, things like that that are running on the devices. Um, so it helps us in being able to, we can hook a particular process and start to dig into how it's running dynamically on the device. So where we're talking about bypassing root detection or bypassing certificate pinning, we can actually start listing out the classes and methods that are running on the device, and that'll start to give us some idea of where that certificate pinning might actually be running. And you'll actually find a lot of that stuff when it's running on a mobile device is actually just passing true and false back and forth. Is this particular URL or is this particular certificate trusted? True? Okay. Allow the connection. False? Don't allow the connection. So Frida actually allows you to hook those method calls, and we can actually dynamically change. Instead of returning false, we return true. And by doing that, we end up bypassing that certificate validation, and we're then able to start looking at all of the traffic. Similar goes for the root detection as well. Oftentimes we'll see that it's a true false statement, or does this particular file exist on the system? That means that there's probably root detection enabled, and therefore there's root enabled on the device, and therefore we shouldn't allow the app to run. So a lot of that is how we end up bypassing those controls. So Frida gives us a ton of control with that, and you can also do a ton of scripting in JavaScript, and I think it's also TypeScript is supported, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of the foundation of what Frida does and it enables for us. And then we have Objection, which is built on top of Frida, that has a lot of those tools or a lot of those scripts already built in. So rather than having to write out a full JavaScript to dump environment variables or hook a particular class method, things like that, it's already pre-scripted out for us. So I can just run Android SSL pinning disable, and it'll go grab a script automatically and run that on top of Frida. So it saves us a lot of time of having to script that stuff ourselves.
Yeah, and if you're interested in seeing what a Frida script looks like, I'm gonna post a link in chat to Frida CodeShare, where there are lots of scripts available. I've used some of them to skirt some jailbreak detection and things like that. If you're interested just to see what it looks like, obviously you can build your own, but it's a great resource to look for things you might need on assessment.
I will
I'm
add
going to
these
throw a little.
features. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say,
There's so many features.
I'm gonna I'm gonna throw a plug in there for a blog post that I think I wrote last year, which was getting started with mobile app testing. So if you're interested in learning it or using any of these tools, I wrote an Android hacking for beginners blog where it walks through setting up not setting up a virtual device for doing Android testing. It sets up all of the tools, and I think in the last portion of it, I actually walk through writing a Frida script in order to bypass some different detections that are in the device there. So
Like my last pain about Frida is it will just stop working when you don't need it to stop working. So
Yeah. It can be a bit tough. You gotta, keep the versions, compatible with each other. There's a version on your device and on your computer as well.
you have
And
to be kind of insane to use it because yeah, you can't so you have to start like a Frida server with Android and iOS, but they have to match the server that's the version on your laptop, and then sometimes it just stops working and you have to troubleshoot for 4 days on why it's not working. No. I'm not I'm not upset about it. Just or
no, it
your
can be
iOS
tough.
is on a different version than your Android, and then you have to have a Python environment open.
well,
And
and it's not just matching versions. The upgrade from Frida 16 to 17, where they did a complete rewrite of how the underlying code works in Frida, which then broke objection. And then you now need to do dev builds from source of objection to get it to work. Is just
boot loops your
it's
Pixel
it's
6.
nightmare material.
I
We do
think
have
there's
a
a bug
Uh,
out right now too. There's like a Play Store update interviewing with Frida. For me, some sort of Play Store art update that I keep having to revert to keep Frida working. Um,
for the
so
week.
yeah,
We do
it's
have a
tough.
question though. It looked like further up.
for the
Um,
third-party libraries, or is
Yes.
there one before that?
Yeah, the third party
Um,
library.
Yeah.
just
So
for
so I'll
I'll
touch on. Go ahead,
It
that.
says are third-party libraries with missing compile level, security controls of valid finding, ASLR, canaries, etc.
Um, so it really depends on the purpose of your application. Typically, we're not reporting on anything like the canaries and things like that. Mostly because we're not getting down to that level. Really, what we're looking for is how can your app be misused, possibly getting like unauthorized access, things like that. Um, we're not looking for can I possibly turn your app malicious or something like that, because the most common attack scenarios that we're going to end up running into are situations where I'm misusing your app functionality to, let's just say we're talking Candy Crush here, right? You're misusing the app to, I don't know, get free coins, or maybe you're disabling ads, or maybe you just want your level to be 9,999 or something like that, right? Um, those are typical scenarios that we're looking for. We're not looking for some of that compile level security controls, mostly because those aren't relevant for the attack surface that we're looking for. That's not to say that they're not relevant findings. They just it's all context related for when you would report those.
What would you guys say are the most common, types of mobile apps we're seeing? For me recently, I've seen a lot of mobile shopping apps or mobile ordering apps, that sort of thing. But what do you think the other, most common types of mobile apps we're getting requests from our clients to look at?
The two big ones that I would say I've been testing this year are like IoT control, right? So being able to control like smart devices in your house. And the other big one are banking apps. So
Yeah.
between cryptocurrency, your actual bank, so like your savings, checking accounts, things like that. Those are the huge ones that I've been seeing this year. The IoT ones are great because there's remote control over actual physical devices, so you get to see how it actually interacts and stuff like that. So um, definitely some cool interactions there.
Yeah, I would have to say banking, at least from a client perspective, without, giving away like what we actually like what we do. But I know like in my previous job, I had also did a lot of messaging messenger apps. So testing the encryption of the actual application, and then drone app software too. So testing between drone and device. Those were cool things, but I think it's just all dependent upon who needs their app tested.
Drone
Really
app sounds.
cool. Oh yeah, they're super cool until you have a drone fly up in your house, and then it's not
Oh
cool.
man.
But yeah, like it's all dependent upon, who comes to us for application testing. I don't do anything on my spare time now just because I get enough of it through work. But
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we have our sort of last 5 minutes here. We have Dave asking a question, getting any vibe coded apps yet? I don't think I've seen any that I suspect. Not at least on the mobile side so far. You guys?
mm,
Can't say I've seen anything vibe coded. Honestly, like the biggest thing that we see from an app perspective is there's a lot of like low code app design where um, all of the frameworks are built into somebody's app and it's literally like drag and drop the menus type of thing. And they really don't have any control over the back end code and actually manipulating it at all. So it runs into an issue when you have a finding for, hey, you're caching stuff here, and they go, well, I never actually wrote any code. I don't know how to fix this.
Yeah, I think that's really, really common, probably more common than on the web app side of things, where you can just be sort of handed a mostly functioning mobile app and just sort of skin it to be whatever you're looking for. I think we see that a lot, especially shopping apps and that sort of thing, where they're all pretty similar, and some shared developers and that sort of thing. I think that's yeah, that's very true.
going off of what Kurt said, too, sometimes there'll be like a third party that has cert pinning. I'm going back to cert pinning because it is the bane of my existence right now. But there'll be a third party app that has cert pinning too. And so you might go back to your client and say, hey, you got cert pinning, can you possibly provide me an app that doesn't have it? And they're like, we don't have cert pinning. I'm like, but I can't proxy traffic. And then when I turn the proxy off, it works. So, and then that's where like MobSF can kind of help you and find the different or where cert pinning might be. But that's
Just for
another thing.
who don't know, Whitney, would you go into a little bit about what certificate pinning is?
I want to do it. It's, um, so in my dumbed down version, basically certificate pinning kind of blocks us from being able to man in the middle traffic. Basically, I forget. Maybe Kurt could probably say it, explain it better. Wasn't
You
prepared
got this. You
with
got
my
this.
dumbed down version.
You're just having stage fright, is all. I think.
It's a little bit
I
hard to
mean,
drill down to, a easily understandable soundbite for sure.
yeah. I mean, so the gist of it is this: is that between client and server, you have a certificate. Think of it like in your web browser, where you have that nice little green lockbox, right? Um, that's saying that certificate was generated by a third party and it's trusted. With certificate pinning, you kind of have a two-way trust that's happening there. You have not only the server that's providing the certificate, but you have the client who's validating it and saying, hey, yeah, I trust this, and I should only be communicating with somebody that I trust. So when you have cert pinning enabled, what happens is when I go to proxy that web traffic, Burp wants to provide its own certificate to say, hey, yeah, this traffic is encrypted, trust my connection. Well, the application doesn't recognize Burp's certificate as part of its trust. So when that happens, the application says, no, I'm not going to communicate with you. You are not trusted. I should only be communicated with these trusted certificates. And Whitney, that's where what you had said comes into play of you end up not being able to man in the middle of the traffic. So what we have to do is find some workaround to trust that certificate in there.
And this is
Go for
something
it,
we
Kelsey.
usually will request to be turned off when we get a client application, just because sort of like jailbreaking, which is another thing that we ask to be allowed to do during an assessment. It's something that with enough time, a really determined attacker is going to be able to get past it if they can fully reverse engineer the app or find a new technique, and we really want to be assessing the application itself rather than those front level controls. It's sort of like a WAF on the web app side where you assume that at some point you're going to be able to bypass that, and you don't necessarily want to test just against that because you're not actually dealing with the meat and bones of the application itself. So yeah, that's part of the reason we ask to have it turned off. But once in a while, whether it's client preference or it's not possible to turn certificate pinning off without a big burden on the developers, we do have to try to bypass it ourselves.
And I will add, a lot of times what will happen is when we do our kickoff calls, we will ask, do you have certificate pinning? Do you have root detection enabled on the device? And oftentimes the developers will say no, and they're saying no because they didn't specifically enable it on the device or on the app rather. But then when we start digging in, they built the app using Flutter. Well, Flutter will natively put it in there. The developer never actually has to specify that certificate pinning should be enabled. So developer never saw it. They don't know it's there. But we as testers, because of the way we're doing things, we see it and we can start to bypass it. And then the other thing that sometimes happens as well, which happened on an app that I was testing last week, is the development team disabled certificate pinning within their build configuration. What happening is it broke like 10 other different things. And so I go to launch the app and the app doesn't work. And it's something that just wasn't caught in their QA process, but working with them, we were able to figure that out and get through a lot of those issues that way. So
Yeah, Flutter apps are my nemesis for sure. They're very challenging to deal with and intercept. A lot of times you'll have to use a funky tool you haven't used before. I had one a few months ago where I had to use a tool called HTTP Toolkit, which I'll send in chat as well, which is sort of an out of the box option for trying to proxy devices. I think it's really best on Android devices, but I think they're rolling out some iOS stuff. And it was the only thing that I could use to get a Flutter app proxying. They're challenging in themselves. They're sort of their own animal for sure. All right. Any last questions? Feel free to send them in chat. Otherwise, I think we're gonna wrap up here. We're a couple minutes over. But
hey, I just want to give a quick round of applause for getting through that question there, Whitney and Kurt. Good job.
I wasn't prepared. Kurt's always he always has this elaborate, pretty explanation on things, and I'm like, dude, it just does this. This is what
it's its own skill. Being able to do it and being able to talk about it, and
he's my go-to about making something pretty sounding. So
yeah, it looks like we have Kelsey. It looks like we do have a question on the YouTube. Let's see. Now, I know their stream is a bit delayed from the Discord, so I'm going to type in their chat real quick.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. And I realized I had a soundboard, and like Skylar fashion, I didn't have it routed to the stream, so I'm going to give you another round of applause. I don't know if you can hear that or not.
No,
really?
We're going to have to test that one.
Yeah. I'll work on it. We'll get it in post.
All right.
Let's see. Yeah, Miles 1R said that they have a question, but they have not sent it yet.
Okay.
So why don't we just give it a couple minutes? I know people got places to be. But if you guys have anything else, let us know.
Or something.
Yep.
No. think I covered. I posted some of the tools that we mentioned in the chat. I also added a link to Kurt's blog, which is a great intro. I know one of our other testers who has done a Discord chat with us before. You might remember Drew Kirkpatrick. He's done a couple great blogs as well. He has a really good one about investigating, local storage and some of that plist cache database stuff that we talked about earlier. He is a great explainer of that. So I'll grab the link for that and post it in the chat as well. Cloudstrife says Drew does amazing work. Thank you. We'll pass we'll pass that along to him. Appreciate it.
We don't want
Yeah.
his ego to get bigger, though.
Well, all right. I'll do
I think I have a getting started in mobile too. I know.
you do? Awesome. I'll make sure to post that
I
as well.
know Kurt's was just Android. I think mine was the entire of like iOS and Android. And then I have a couple of talks that I've done on that. So if anybody wants slide decks, I can send those out to people too. So, or if you just need to ask questions, I'm here for your Googling.
Do you know any of those talks that are listed online or taped anywhere, Whitney?
I know I've got one for it'd be on YouTube. I'll have to find them. Let me search that real quick.
And
Sure.
while you're looking that up, I did get the question from Miles1R, and there may have been a mistype here. It says, "How do I find unused content?" I'm going to assume it's how do I find unused content in the application. I'm not exactly sure what that means, Miles. But go ahead.
If you're talking about, if you're testing like a development application, and maybe the API has some stuff that's not available in the mobile application but is in the API, sometimes we'll try to find Swagger docs or things like that. Oftentimes, we're working hand in hand with our clients, so if there is something that's not covered by the mobile application that we can't find by exploring the mobile application itself, sometimes a client will provide, extra API tests, especially if it's something they're planning on incorporating in the future. So they'll just provide the requests or give us an idea of how to find it. Um, depending on the assessment, it sort of depends on how close we're working with the client. Some clients want us to just, little information, as much as a like attacker type thing as possible. Some of them want to be a little bit more hand in hand with us and give us some code, give us some more background information that's customized to know what the client wants. So if that's sort of answer your question, I'm not sure what quite content you're talking about, but that's my answer there.
I'm gonna take a swing at that from a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
And kind of the way that I interpret that is you might have like hidden screens and things like that in your Android device or your iOS device, where you do like the 3-finger swipe from the top left to the bottom right or something like that in order to get like a dev console to pop up, where it's not readily apparent just by clicking on the actual buttons and walking through the app functionality. So some of the ways that we identify that on the Android side is your Android manifest actually lists all of the activities that are allowed within the app. So you might have like a main screen, you might have like a bill pay or something like that if we're talking a banking app, right? But there might actually be like a dev console activity where now you know that activity is there, go look for it in the mobile app. One of the nice things about Objection is because you're actually hooking the code base for it, you can actually list all of the activities with Objection, and you can also launch those activities to get to those pages. So where it might have been hidden content that we couldn't see within the mobile app, we can directly launch that using Objection and see what that screen looks like. So that's typically how I've identified those types of things when they're hidden in a mobile app. So maybe that also might be kind of what they were looking for from the unused content perspective.
Yeah, fair enough, maybe. However, because we are coming up on time, if your question wasn't answered, go ahead and hit us up on the Discord channel, discord.gg/trustedsec if you want to join. And this is for the folks that are on YouTube. I know we're doing a Discord live stream here, so you're already on Discord if you're watching there. But other than that, Kelsey, you want to take it away and talk us
Yeah,
out?
I think thanks everyone so much for joining. Appreciate it. We're still getting next month's talk scheduled. But if you have any requests, anything you'd like us to chat about, feel free to send me a message or send it in just general chat, and we'll see it. Appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. I leave? Do I end this?
Hey, girl, gun. I'll get it, Whitney. Don't worry. End stage for everyone. Oh, one more thing.
What? Oh, bye.
Ah, man, I didn't hit the button in time. Dang it.
One more thing. Do it again.
I
One more thing.
know. One more thing. I was trying Tony Soprano